Linux Out Loud is firing up our mics, connecting those headphones as we prepare to get rowdy. I'm Wendy, and I'm joined with my fellow co-hosts, Nate and Bill. We're three friends sitting around a virtual table talking Linux, open source, tech, gaming, and everything in between. We keep the banter friendly. The conversation, we'll see how on topic we stay, and we have fun doing it. This week, we're spouting off about our Linux tips and tricks. Let's get into episode 97. Well, hello, Nate, and welcome back, Bill. It's kind of cool that we got to see you not too long ago and you're back on the show.
Happy to be here.
Yay!
I'm happy you're here.
I guess the only one who's not happy I'm here is probably Matt, but does anybody... Hello, Matt?
No, he's happier here too.
Matt. So I'm sorry if I get a little bit noisy on the breast today. I'll try to clean it up in post. But inhaling fumed silica is not a good idea. It really makes your lungs angry. I'm several days into this adventure. I've got my inhaler, but if you see me run out of breath or coughing, whatever, that's what's going on. I'm fine. I'm just a little bit of an idiot. But Matt, your son... Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. Nate, your son is having fun with Windows 8. I'm kind of shocked. Why does he have Windows 8 installed in the first place?
No, Windows 98.
98. Yes,
98. He already
I
did the
read
Windows
98, but I said 8.
Yeah, so 98's newer because it's a higher number than Windows 8. But so my oldest... he has decided that he wants to experience the late 90s PC adventure. So this means he is taking an old Pentium 4 from the early 2000s, and he's installing, he has installed successfully, after some tries, Windows 98. And I'm really impressed. I'm actually quite proud of him that he even cares to do this, because what kid wants to play with old technology? Well, he's my kid, so I guess whatever.
Your kid? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's definitely your kid.
Yes, the nut didn't fall far from the tree. In fact, he's very much a nut. So right now he's struggling with the USB drivers. And, he got everything else going. He even arranged the desktop the way he likes it. And I'm like, wow, this really looks old. And I kind of laughed. And he says, what? I think it looks great. Just a low resolution. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But anyway, so he asked how I were to get the USB drivers working, and what's the process. He asked me all these questions about getting Windows 98 working properly, and I told him my solution was to install Linux, and I haven't looked back since. So I can't provide any answers for him. Anyway, so he's currently struggling with that right now. His pain is he can use USB like mouse and keyboard, but he cannot use USB mass storage devices. That requires a special driver for USB for the machine. So that is, and then the files are too large to put on a floppy, and so that's not working. So he's, I don't know. Currently he's going to try and burn a CD. So I have some CDs still, some CD writables, and
Nice.
He just complained to me that he doesn't know how to navigate K3B on Linux, and so we'll see how this goes. Probably after the show, I will be showing him how to burn a CD. So we're going to take it back 20 years, roll it back about 10 years? No, more than 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm.
Somewhere. So anyway, that's what he's been working on now, and I think it's very, very amusing. And again, like, I installed Linux, and all my Windows problems melted away to reveal Linux problems, and they're just different. So I say,
right,
Windows or Linux or even Mac OS, one is not more painful than the other. They're just different kinds of pain. It's what kind of pain do you like to endure? So for me, I view Linux as more like muscle pain after hard workout. I view Windows pain as like breaking a pelvis. So there's just different kinds of pain. I'm not saying one is better than the other. You might prefer a broken pelvis or to sore muscles, but that's up to you. And Mac OS is like a concussion. So, choose your pain.
I like that. I very much like how you worded that. I think I will take the sore muscles over the broken bone, because I would agree. in those
Likewise.
kinds of pains. Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see how it all shakes out. But I'll let you know next time if we've got a successful Optiplex something. I don't know what it is. Dell Optiplex GX240. That's what he just told me.
Nice.
So that's what he's running, and I guess we'll see if it's running like Redneck Rampage or Descent or Doom or whatever from the 90s. We'll see how it goes.
Something fun like that. Heck yeah.
Yeah, he's got hooked to a standard aspect ratio LCD screen because I don't actually have. I only have one CRT monitor left, and that's in my lab, and he can't take that one. That one's special. So
it's special because you've had it for a long time, or it's connected up to a different like special system.
No, it's special because when I got into doing CAD for a previous employer of mine, they gave me some old Unix hardware, and this is one of the monitors from that. It's a 21-inch CRT. It's really heavy. It's a real nice, high quality monitor. In fact, I was sad when I gave up that CRT for an LCD. I was a Luddite back in the day too. I'm like, I miss the CRT. This LCD stuff is garbage. But now I think LCDs are better because I do use it from time to time, and it works. It works pretty well. I hooked my Commodore 64 up to it, which is overkill.
Overkill is underrated, as you'll find out later in what I've been up to.
Yeah. So speaking of what have you been up to, Bill? So you took some time off because broken pelvis? I don't know. Or is it a head concussion? I'm not sure which.
I'd say a broken brain is probably more accurate.
Okay.
So I decided to take a number of days off last week going into the long weekend to kind of give myself a mental break after a very busy summer stretch. And sometimes by stepping away from a project or a series of projects, you can come back to it with a clean perspective. And that's exactly what happened. I went back to the office today. I logged into one of my Linux servers and solved a nagging problem that was literally right under my nose that I couldn't figure out at the end of the week before, just because I had been too busy being distracted by a million other things. And I would tell everybody out there, it's important to take a break like that. You need to make sure that your mental health is okay. Walk away, take a break, go do something analog. One of the things that I like to do that's analog, as you all know, is grill. So that's what I did for a good chunk of the weekend. I grilled, I swam.
A great weekend for it.
A great weekend for it, indeed.
Great weekend for grilling.
See, this weekend I did 100 pounds, and yes, it's actually over 100 pounds, 107 pounds of smoked pork butt for my in-laws' 50th anniversary party coming up. So we were all cooking together, just not together.
So that's cool. I think it's neat. I mean, together, not together, whatever. I mean, however, we like doing it over Zoom or something.
That would have been cool. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Jitsi.
Maybe next time. Yeah,
Microsoft Teams?
Over Jitsi.
Skype.
No Teams. We can do Jitsi. That's fine. Zoom, I don't have a paid one, so it would last for 45 minutes and then be up. But I guess we could use the one for oh my gosh, Linux Saloon, right?
Good.
One way or another, we could all do a virtual chat as we grill, barbecue, smoke.
You could use Discord. If they have Discord, you could probably use Discord. That'd be a way to go too. Mm-hmm. As Bill rolls
put a cam on the smoker.
I know of some Jitsi servers that are publicly available, one of which I frequent.
OpenSUSE?
Mm-hmm.
OpenSUSE bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, it's been way too long since I've been in there, and I miss chatting with everybody. I really need to jump back in and visit with everybody again. It's been way too long. Yeah.
So whenever they call for hey, the bar's open, I'm always either in a meeting or I'm engaged in something else. I've got to just stop down and at least just hop in for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yes. Yes. When do you get the notifications? Where are you getting the notifications that the bar's open?
On Matrix. So I'll see it in the I'll see it in there.
I don't think
I'm currently on that anymore, but yes, I should just jump in and see. Like I said, it's been forever since I've actually jumped in and said hi to everybody, so I might have to do that again. Yeah, but glad. So what did you grill in this fun grilling weekend?
Well, during the summer, I do a lot of meal prep.
Mm.
And this week was kind of no different, except I did it all in my green egg and not on my gas grill.
Nice.
Is it like
and
an
I
ostrich egg?
thoroughly enjoyed that.
Like a rotten ostrich egg?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Except one that makes absolutely
Way bigger.
glorious food.
Did you put ham in your green egg?
Do pork chops count?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So then there were hams in the egg. So
There
it was a
pork,
green
in
egg
the egg.
and ham.
Yep.
That
I like that.
I think we'll stick with that. But for me, the best part about it isn't even grilling the meat itself. It's the analog act of filling the charcoal chimney, starting the fire, letting the fire build, and just watching the coals burn, because there's no technology involved with any of that.
Right.
That is just simple
Yes.
physics and chemistry.
There's a little technology.
I'm going to
in that.
have to send
One could argue.
you. Well, I mean, a little bit in the fact, like the technology that was developed in order for the charcoal to properly light quicker, because it's definitely way easier to do in one of those chimneys than it is to just straight up light it. And then the time and stuff that it went to making that particular grill. But for the most part, as far as like the way our technology lives go, it's way less technical. Though I
Not
do
digital
need
technology.
a new thermometer. I do need a new thermometer. The last one I had, I destroyed. I'd thrown some roast on the grill, and I was just going to do a sear on the outside and then turn off the 3 middle burners and let the outsides continue to go. And I got busy in doing something else, and I started a grease fire in which it destroyed my meat thermometer. Caused some melting of the knobs. It got hot. And
Sweet.
note to self, don't walk away from the grill. But I'm going to have to send you a picture of the meat that I smoked this week, because I think you'd enjoy it.
You know, I know this is total side tangent. I apologize for this, but yesterday I had a hankering for grilled onions on a hot dog. And I don't know what came over me, but I went out of my way to have hot dogs with grilled onions. And keep in mind, I do try and eat a clean diet and everything else. But I just could not resist like this burning desire for onions with grilled onions on a hot dog. I couldn't like, I was just stuck. Do you ever get that? Like where you just have such a hankering for some kind of food that like you're going to like move heaven and earth just to have, and I mean, just hot dogs. So it wasn't that big a deal, but like burgers
it's been
and
a
hot
while
dogs right
since
now.
I've had one that strong. Last time it obviously that wouldn't work for you, but last time I had a hankering that strong was when I was pregnant with my third. She was a summer baby, and cherries were on, and I probably ate 40 or 50 pounds of cherries that summer.
Wow.
Easy.
Did you like save the seeds and spit them at people?
No, I didn't, but I should have. Yes.
Yeah. Especially Magneto. Yep.
Well, speaking of food, I was greeted with a jar of pickles at our office that my boss made.
Ooh.
They are really good. He's an incredible vegetable grower. But his pickles are known for having a bit of a kick to them. And when I mean kick, I mean several ghost peppers in the jar.
Ooh.
So when you eat one of these, and when you eat a pickle, the guys were eating these small little, cuts of pickle while I was out. And I went in the office, I saw the jar, popped it open, ate a whole one. And I was immediately reminded of why that was a bad idea, especially before 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So being the smart guy that I am, I decided that I would take one of the peppers out and I would cut it up and I would mix it in with my leftovers for lunch. It was amazing. And I was awake for the rest of the day.
Heartburn.
Little trade of caffeine for capsaicin. I think that's kind of how that trade-off works. Both of them increase the heart rate a bit and make you sweat.
So, I mean, really, I think to me, that sounds incredibly delightful. Like I'd be excited for that. I like spicy food. I think when the food, fights back a little bit, I think that's all the better.
I'm okay with some heat as long as there's still flavor to it. If it's just stupid heat, I don't want it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, Wendy, I think Nate's not the only one who's got people playing around with some older machines. From what I understand, you have an older machine that you have repurposed.
Yes, I have. So this machine has actually been the kitchen system, and I have a different one that's going to go into its place. So this is an HP Compact 8300 Ultra Slim. So it's a little one, but it came with an i5 3rd gen. And I happen to have an i7 of the same year, so I swapped those out. That's been running in the kitchen, and it's got 8 gigs of RAM inside of it. And while you can install Klipper on a cute little Raspberry Pi, this just happens to be a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B with
Adorable.
8 gigs of RAM. Adorable little guy. You can also run it from a desktop or a laptop. So I was like, heck, might as well. This already was going to be overkill with just 8 gigs of RAM in general. Why not take a much more powerful CPU with 8 gigs of RAM as well? So I've been able to get Ubuntu server installed. So it's running 2404. I can SSH into the machine because, obviously it's headless where it's the Ubuntu server. And I have to say, I really like the way that the Ubuntu server install works. It's the first time I've ever done it. And they make it extremely easy to get it installed with their, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a GUI interface, but it does definitely walk you through the steps of getting it installed. And then I used another package, and I can't ever remember exactly how to pronounce it, but I will drop it in the show notes in order to get the Klipper packages installed on there, Moonraker, which is the back end for the server, and Fluid installed all on there. And I'm pretty sure I have the firmware flashed to the main board. Everything's wired in. And I've got my printer config file, I think for the most part, all worked out. The problem is when I go to launch the server from a web browser or whatever, it can't see it. And I don't know what's going on. Like, I can't find it. It says it's not there. I know, right? I can SSH into the box. So that part's fine. I don't know if I've missed somewhere a config file. I don't know that because it's not running on a Raspberry Pi, maybe there's some other security setting that's keeping that from being able to work. I've got no clue. And that's the last thing I need in order to have this printer back up and running, is to actually have Fluid working so that I can run the printer. That's the last thing I've got. And I'm currently stuck.
It's really puzzling why it wouldn't be able to see it. I mean, so the Fluid server is running on the Ubuntu system, right?
Right, exactly.
But
exactly. So,
and you can't see it running on that, or the printer can't see the Fluid server.
So right now, in order for it to work, Fluid needs to come up, right? It needs to be fully working and loading. So then it can load the printer config file and then talk to the main board, which then, of course, talks to the printer. But we're stopped in that not being able to launch Fluid. When I try to use the IP address that is assigned to that system, it tells me that, it's not there. It can't load it. So I'm wondering if it has to do with some sort of security issue. I'm half tempted just to go ahead and throw it on the Raspberry Pi and see if it mitigates that to make sure that that's not the issue. And then I think the firmware flashed to the main board because I am seeing it as a serial device inside of the system. I can look it up. I can find it. All of that's good. But we're just not launching or loading the Fluid server. So there's got to be something somewhere that I'm missing that's making it not run properly.
If it uses a specific IP and port, you may need to
Mhm.
make sure that that port is available and open on your firewall. So in Ubuntu, I believe they use UFW as their
Okay.
firewall backend, and you may need to just explore opening that port, whatever port that
Okay.
fluid uses. Sometimes when I'm troubleshooting issues like that, I will temporarily, and I mean temporarily, disable the firewall just to validate that a connection works, re-enable it once I find the port that I need to open up, and then work from there.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's also a strategy I use. And then sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I can just leave the firewall off. Don't do that.
No, don't ever do that.
Yeah, especially something that's connected to the internet, right? And the issue that's been going on with the 0.0.0 bug issue, right? That's been out there. So I was kind of wondering if some of the issues that I've been having in getting it to connect is the way things have been shut down. But I did go into I think it's called Moonraker. I did go into that config file and set it as the IP address that is assigned to that system as far as what the server is. So it probably is something back inside the firewall that's keeping it from being able to run. And I'll definitely check that out and kind of see what's going on, because it does have a port listed that it uses, and it's probably just opening up that port that, well, fingers crossed, fix my issue, and the system should be back up and running.
Keep me
So the other
posted.
thing too is journal CTL, so journal control. I don't know how it's called, but what was the command I used? Like journal control, like dash something. Is it F? I think for follow or
Yes.
something like that. So what you can do is you can.
Okay.
That's actually an article I'm working on cubiclenight.com, because I need a reference for this that works for me. Because I've had to use it several times for just checking things like what's going on with a particular whatever. But you can also, because your computer creates incredible numbers of logs. So sometimes I want to filter it out with specific like network manager or something like that. Then there's other things that whatnot.
Ooh,
But anyway,
and that is one thing that I found earlier today, that there is a log that I can look at for both the Moonraker and Fluid and see if there's something going on in there. Yeah. I got home just before we jumped into record, so I haven't been able to check that since I read that. So it is that is definitely
on the
list too. Yes, if you'll send me information on that so I can also use that to kind of see maybe what's going on in the back end, that would be fantastic.
So I don't have anything written up yet.
Okay. That is a Cubicle Nate article to come.
It is to come, yeah. That's because I had a bunch of like issues with like understanding where I was having problems with network manager and so forth, and I was trying to determine where the breakdown was. It wasn't with network managers, with the settings basically, and it's all worked out now. Although
that's good.
I think my solution was a sidestep was basically like, well, what if I look at it from another point of view? And so that's actually how I fixed it.
That's good, and that kind of goes along with what Bill was talking about earlier. Sometimes stepping away from the problem or trying to look at it from a different direction helps you solve it.
Yep. And so sometimes it's good just to like walk away, go. I'm kind of tired of the colloquialism, go touch grass. For me, it's go watch chickens. I like to go watch chickens, and then I feel better. So I think it's a solution to depression. Chickens. Everyone should get a chicken.
Chickens can be. Yes, chickens absolutely can be. It's kind of the reason that I love it when we go to the mountains. And it's because we don't have any cell phone service up there. And so you get to completely disconnect, just hang out with the family, maybe some friends, and not have anything else going on. Be completely disconnected.
Now, my chickens do interact with it, but they are recipients of what HomeAssistant does, because my chicken coop does have HomeAssistant devices inside of it. But anyway, that's a whole other thing.
It keeps them happy and laying eggs, which keeps you happy.
Especially in the wintertime.
Now, last week I had a whole bunch of tips and tricks that we skipped over because that other main board had showed up. So I thought it would be kind of fun this week to kind of go over some of the tips and tricks that we have over the years of us running Linux. Now, of the three of us, I've been running it the least amount of time, So I'm kind of excited to see what kind of stuff you have to show us. And Nate, yours starts off with something that I know I've heard of, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. A Crontab?
Yeah, so Crontab, it's one of those things I don't use very often because once you set something up, you don't really think about it again for a long time, and then you forget about how'd you set it up. So for me specifically, it's I have a terminal server that, at work, a couple of them, that they do a lot of just tasks, and they generate lots of logs, specifically an IMAP log. And so what would happen is it would fill up the drive with logs. And it didn't have a self-pruning thing, whatever. There's not like a systemd unit or whatever. And I probably could have found a systemd unit that did this thing, or I could just once a week clear out the logs. So I have an article on kubecon.com, which I did not put in the show notes yet, but I will get there. That it allows. Actually, I can probably do it right now.
Yes.
There we go.
Before you forget, before I forget which.
There we go. So
perfect.
It's a simple thing, and I searched like Crontab, whatever, and I saw there's like lots of stuff from like Stack Exchange or whatever that I got, and then but then like way down the list there was a link to the OpenSUSE wiki, which is probably the best written of all the different things I've read because it just explained everything. I'm like, oh, I really like that. So my article is primarily just a link to that wiki, and then what my solution was, what my problem was, what my solution was, and then just one quick little reference that I can use. So, but really, and I link twice to the OpenSUSE wiki because that's got more details in it. Mine is more or less just I'm publishing my notes for when I need to refer back to it. So I will just refer back to this article because that's what I use my website for. And then I can, if my article doesn't have enough detail in it for what I'm doing, then I'll just click on the OpenSUSE wiki, and then they'll have a lot more detail in there.
Nice.
And that's it. So, and then I have like a little diagram, like a monospace diagram that I put in there as well, just for my reference or your reference.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably the only person that needs it is me because everyone else is an expert on these things. But the real neat thing about Crontab, which, I guess I think it's neat, it's neato, is you can set up basically when you want to execute something. So if you want to like poll a device or whatever, or poll or do a specific act every minute, every hour, day, you can set it by a specific month or weekday. It's really cool.
Oh, wow.
You can do with it. Yeah. So there's a lot of things you can do, and then just a command execute. So you can if you have like a script that you run, you could do that. And so it's just a very simple way to just have something happen at whatever interval that you need to have it happen, and then that's it. So, I mean, you could also do a systemd unit that would do some things like this too, which I think some people do, which is a little more advanced. This is just, for me, this is just a very simple task. Just all I wanted to do is delete a file once a week. Because if I need to refer to those files...
So do you have it deleting all of the files or up to the latest one? So it leaves the last one?
No, it's actually just one log. It keeps it pending. And so if I don't monitor it, it'll get to like 40 gigs worth of logs. And they're useless anyway.
Oh, okay. I got you. So it's the same file that just keeps growing on forever and ever and ever. Okay.
And so I just wipe out that one log, and once a week, Friday at 1500, and that's it. And then I don't have to worry about it filling up and locking up the terminal server because it doesn't warn me because I don't have a little warning agent on there. So I just do that. Very simple.
There's a song about that.
Is there?
Yes.
This
is the log that never ends.
There we go. Lamb Chops Play Along.
Insert a scene from Lamb Chop here.
Yep. It's Log Chops Play Along.
Log Chop, yes. We're just chopping off the log. And actually the syntax of it is really simple. You can actually type, if you want to, on Friday, you can just type in that spot, FRI. You just have to make sure you have asterisks in any of the other spots that are basically you're skipping over. So, and then, if you want it like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, on Friday, it's asterisk space 15 space asterisk, and then then asterisk again for month, and then for the weekday Friday FRI, and then the command. It's super simple. It's like really simple, but like I just had to just visually see it to understand it again, and that's all the article is. It might be considered a waste of digital space, honestly, but it's for me.
I don't currently need it, but if I did. You have it laid out quite nicely in order to get it done.
Honestly, I don't currently have a need for it anymore either. So before I forgot what I learned, right? It's already running. I'm done. It's out the door. So, but should I have a need for it again, then I'll just refer back to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Which I'm sure Bill, he refers to his tuning of his DNF, which sounds like something kind of scary.
So for those of you that don't know, I tend to run Fedora. Mm-hmm. And what I think about is, what are the things that I need to make sure that my system runs the most efficiently? And one of my tips and tricks is to go into your config file for your packages, and it's usually under etc dnf dnf.conf, and I set my max parallel downloads to 10. And what that does is it means that I can concurrently download and update 10 packages at a time when there's a major system update. The only downside of that is I don't have a lot of time to go get a cup of coffee or go let the dogs out while that's running, because now it just updates so fast that I feel compelled to get back to it as quickly as possible.
So do you have pretty high-speed internet at your place then?
I do. I have fiber.
Oh, yes. So you definitely have very high-speed internet. Uh-huh.
That is a requirement for wherever I live. I will not move to a place that does not have good bandwidth, because I will do silly things like shave my head or who knows what else. But I'm not going to subject myself to such tortures.
So like you'll get really hot like Pedro and Napoleon Dynamite and shave your head. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. Working in the IT field as I do, I'm always concerned with data backups. So my tip and trick is to always make sure that you have backups in multiple places, not just one. And some of the backup utilities that I've used before, the GUI ones, are Deja Dupe, which is built into most distributions. I've also used KBackup. Some of the text-based ones that are really nice, if like Wendy, for your Ubuntu server, you may want to look at something like Restic. Restic is a great utility. You create like a data store initialized somewhere else, and then Restic will take regular backup intervals. Nice. And also make sure you check your backups. So plug your backup device in, make sure that you can restore critical files and folders, because nothing is worse than trusting that backup and it's your only backup, which is why I suggest multiples, and then finding out your data is corrupted or has a problem. Right. So in the grand scheme of things, if your data does not exist in 3 places, it does not exist at all. So I make sure that when I provision a new machine that I've got my backup structure in place, and I actually have a recurring calendar appointment every X months to make sure that my backups are actually working the way that they're supposed to.
Nice. So that's actually written into your calendar for your to-do list then? Heck yeah.
It's every 6 months on a Saturday. I think I get a little reminder saying, hey, check your backups. And nice. I have a whole routine that I follow for my Linux systems and my NAS units.
Heck yeah.
So just for make sure I'm doing things okay. So all my data that I have, like on this computer here, minus my downloads folder. I don't care about that. Maybe I should, but I don't.
Right.
Is backed up to my server, and then I'll have it replicated to another computer and to my NAS. So is that enough?
Your data exists in 3 places.
But it's not really considered. It's not really a backup, though. It's synchronizing between them. So is that really considered a backup? I'm told that's not considered a backup.
I wouldn't consider it a backup by most standards, but what you can do for better backup control is make sure that you have snapshots enabled on your systems. And since you run OpenSUSE, they have a really nice utility built in to their ButterFS for snapshot replication. And you could take snapshots of your file system and then send those to your server and those to your NAS. And if you're really concerned, you could set up something like rsync of your home folder and exclude maybe downloads or .local or .config or your web cache. Nobody wants to back that up.
Right.
Use something like rclone or rsync and send that to your NAS and then snapshot that directory using the built-in tooling from the NAS.
Okay.
I've run into situations.
I'm using sync thing, which is nothing more than a front end for rsync anyway.
Sync thing works great. I would just tell you to make sure you've got versioning of your files on whatever your backup destination is.
I can tell you, yes, I do.
Great.
I'm probably okay.
Nice.
But what I was really good at doing for quite a while was taking like incremental backups, like once a week, just like a cold storage, and then I fell off the wagon.
It's easy to do when you get busy. You've got kids and they've got activities and you've got work. It just doesn't take long before your day fills up. And then some of those things that we should do don't get done.
I mean, it'd be really easy, like Sunday afternoon, like when you kind of have a lazier day, a Sunday afternoon kind of activity, you start an incremental backup. I think I know part of the reason was my drive I was using incremental backups with got too small. Somehow it reduced in size when my
filled up.
Storage increased.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I would also suggest that you take an archive of your folder. So for instance, you can grab a little external hard drive or even an external SSD online for pretty cheap these days. Take a manual backup to that and then throw that in, let's say, a bank safe deposit box or a fireproof safe with a family or friend that you can keep. And that data never rotates. That is effectively a snapshot of your life at a certain point in time. So if all else fails, you can go back to that manual one-time safe copy and see what data you can extrapolate from it.
It's a good idea. I think what Matt does, not to bring him up because, he's not here, he's, being Matt, is he has like a couple of drives that he rotates for his backups. Like he backs up. So I think what he told me, and I could be speaking for him, which wouldn't be a bad thing either. But what I thought he did was like take incremental backups and then like rotate for every backup. And I think it's like 2 or 3 drives that he had, so that if a drive failed, it was okay, essentially. So he had large cold storage that way.
Let's see. I just got a text from Matt that says, never mind the backups, just full send. Oh, wait, hold on. I always make sure to back up my Steam Deck.
Well, of course he would, right? Yes, most definitely.
So
that's his most important device.
Yeah, basically. So you use Deja Dupe and KBackup are the two that you use?
I use a combination of backup strategies. So, for instance, Deja Dupe works really well in some instances, KBackup in others. I've also used some of the proprietary tooling that's built into my NAS units from Synology to take backups as well. So it just kind of depends on what my use case is, really.
What system it's running on and the circumstances. So where is something like Deja Dupe better?
Deja Dupe, I find, works better on a desktop like the one I'm using right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like it. Its interface is easy to use. Even though I'm a Plasma user and that is a GTK application, I do find that it is one of the best tools for the job. And recovering files from it is pretty straightforward. You can even encrypt the backups. And if you're going to send your backups offsite, you have to make sure you encrypt them. Yeah. Make sure you encrypt them because you don't want that drive getting into the wrong hands and having your data out there, if you can help it.
Makes sense. Have you used Back in Time?
I have not used Back in Time, but I've also used Borg.
I like Borg and Vorta because they're Star Trek, alien races. But because I love Back to the Future, I had to use Back in Time. That was really the reason I used it, was because do I want Star Trek or Back to the Future? I'm going to go Back to the Future because I like the whole, whatever.
Right, Scott.
Yeah, pretty much. I should have worn that t-shirt.
You should have.
Cockpit for system management. I just started playing with this, and I sent you a bunch of screenshots, and you stopped talking to me. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe I don't know if I irritated you, but
I had to go into meetings at work. I got busy.
Oh, you had to work. I got it. It was actually specifically part of my work, which is why I'm excited to hear you, go forth and speak wonderful things about Cockpit.
So let me start with what I had wanted Cockpit to do and what it became. Cockpit started off for me as a replacement of an older utility called Webmin that I used to use many, many moons ago on Linux servers. And Webmin was okay. It allowed those that weren't comfortable, for instance, manually manipulating bind config files to have a nice, easy interface for configuring changes in DNS zones, firewall rules, whatever else have you. The Cockpit project, to me, is the next generation, and they're always improving it. And what I'm using Cockpit for now is managing my virtual machines that I have on my servers. And I like it because it's very easy for me to configure the networking, the storage. I can easily configure Podman containers to run alongside Cockpit. I can access the terminal right through the browser, which is very helpful sometimes if you don't have an SSH connection to your machine. And the more that I see Cockpit being developed, the more I'm excited about it. I have not used it for clustering. I would love to see some sort of backup interface, point and click for basically my customers to use so that they don't have to be command line gurus in order to know how to back up their system. They can quickly log in and take a backup either through a Btrfs snapshot, send receive, or integrate Borg or Restic or something like that into their tooling to make it easy for the non-CLI sysadmin, as I call them, to manage their systems without a lot of intervention. So Cockpit for me gets installed on every system that I own, regardless whether it's a desktop, laptop, server. And in fact, as I learned some Ansible, that Cockpit package in that role is automatically pushed to the devices that I specify.
Nice. Very nice.
So I on that. So today, this is for work. It's specifically for a project that I have to have answers for in 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks as of Monday, so week and a half. But I'm going to be using Cockpit on some hardware to deploy basically 4 Windows VMs, Windows Server VMs, for a specific project. And I did notice there is a snapshot. You can create snapshots on the VMs. There's on the very bottom on the virtual machine section. You can do that. I have not done that yet. Yeah, you can make revert to earlier states. So my question is, could then that be used where you can create snapshots, maybe using something like maybe something better than Crontab? I don't know. We can create those snapshots at a specific interval and then send them to a backup device. Or how would you do that? Can you do incremental snapshots? I don't know. How would that work?
In the VM world, in my opinion, there are certain tools that are purpose-built for a specific job. I am a big fan of using either XCP-ng or Proxmox for those purposes because I have an easy mechanism to do incremental or differential backups. I can see where they're going. I can check a backup, can easily restore it. I have full control over the whole suite. And I know that snapshots are backups. They're not backups. That's a whole contentious argument that will go on until the end of eternity. But specifically in those two systems, I like them because I can specify, okay, this is a snapshot. This is a full backup. This is a delta backup. This is an incremental backup. And then pick of those methodologies where I want those to go. So I have not, for production machines, used Cockpit and the built-in KVM to do that. I have used a little bit of a different tool set. And again, that's just my personal preference. There are a lot of ways to do that. But in the line of work that I do, I have to make sure that the system is supported, and not just supported by me, but that there's third-party support available. I don't ever want my customers to feel like they're locked into my solutions only. I want them to feel like they can contact the support vendor directly if they so choose. And I also like it because I can centrally manage everything from one shot. I can centrally manage all the virtual machine servers that are running a suite of VMs, whether they're Linux or Windows. I would also say make sure that if you're going to back up the virtual machines in the hypervisor, that you have a supplemental type of backup that exists inside of each VM itself. Now, that may sound redundant to some people, but again, I believe that if your data is not in three places, you don't have it at all.
Right.
So using that supplemental backup means that, let's say your Proxmox instance fails a job, or your XCP fails a job, or your snapshots fail, at least the data inside the machine could still be backed up. And in the Windows side, you could use something like Synology Active Backup for Business if you have a Synology NAS, or if you have a QNAP NAS, they have a tool built in for that as well. I happen to have a Synology NAS, and I use Active Backup for Business on the Windows side or the Mac side quite frequently. On the work side of things, I won't tell you that I have to use Windows Microsoft Hyper-V for work. But because I do, I use a specific suite of tools that specialize in that type of solution. So, Nate, I can help you offline with some of your questions and troubles. If you want to send me a message, I'd be happy to have a chat with you more about it.
Just so you know, some of the troubles here, some of the challenges is this is behind a DMZ. So I have to do this all very carefully for security reasons. It's a tortured path, essentially, to get to the solution that I want to get to. And there are no direct answers from anything that I've researched thus far. So, Bill, you're going to be an awesome resource. And yes, we'll have a chitty chat.
And Nate, because you were not here the last time I was here, I have dedicated the last tip specifically to you. And that is one of the most popular home automation software packages out there, which is called HomeBridge. Now, for those of you that don't know what HomeBridge is, it is a service that allows you to integrate systems together that may not necessarily play nice. Specifically, I'll pick on Ring cameras, for instance. For those of you that are using Ring and want to integrate that into, let's say, Apple HomeKit, HomeBridge allows you to take things that are not HomeKit compatible and make them HomeKit compatible.
No, that's interesting.
So that is my professional tip and trick for you, Nate, is you can also integrate that into HomeAssistant. So maybe you want to use your Apple HomePod smart speakers, but you don't have a way of connecting them easily into another system or a Home Assistant. HomeBridge, which I run it on a Pi, but you can also run it on a Docker container if that suits you, works absolutely flawlessly with this.
Just recently, because somebody told me, like, you know, the things from Amazon, they have like fat pucks. You know what I'm talking about? What they're called? Now, my tinfoil hat does not like those. But when somebody told me what it can do, I got all sorts of excited. And in as such that when if I were to say to this device, red alert, it'll make the Star Trek The Next Generation alert sound and some other things around it that brought a smile to my face. And I'm like, can I have this thing tell my Home Assistant to use a specific scene where my kitchen starts flashing red above and below the cabinets?
I can tell you that is possible because the company that backs Home Assistant and the SB Home project, known as Nabukasa, big shout out to them.
Yep, I pay for their service only because I want to support them.
Exactly. And part of the service that you get is the ability to integrate said puck-looking device into Home Assistant. And the other reason why I like supporting that project is because, again, you brought up a DMZ or a secure firewall that you're behind. And what I like about the Nabukasa subscription is you don't have to punch any holes in your firewall. They handle what I call the brokering for you. So your requests go up to Nabukasa, they come back. It's all open source. Everything stays private and encrypted. You get the best of both worlds.
Right. And so now what I want to do is I would like to integrate that. And then I'm thinking, you know, there are other lights that I could have do the same thing. I could create some scenes in Home Assistant so that I get the effect that I want, and so forth. And then I took it to another level of crazy. I don't have these yet, but I would like to get smart locks that integrate into Home Assistant as well. And so if I say that, which brand?
I have the Yale branded ones.
The Yale, okay. And they work no problem with Home Assistant?
Not had an issue with it. Wendy, I want to apologize in advance for sending Nate down his favorite rabbit hole.
I have lots of favorite rabbit holes.
It's totally fine because one day I would love to eventually do this. So all of the information I'm absorbing. Yes, I might have to go back and re-listen to some of these shows or pick up some of Cubicle Nate's noodles, but it just like is cool what noodles. It is, right? Yes. Yes, you're
more blatherings. But the
oh yeah, there you go.
So we'll talk another time. But anyway, is it Z-Wave or Zigbee? Because I don't have a Zigbee interface at this point, or Z-Wave. I don't even know what the difference is at this point. I thought they're both the same.
My current lock, which is the Yale, is Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And I will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good is that it integrates into just about anything, whether you're using Google, Amazon, or Apple, or Home Assistant. It just works. Okay. The downside, and the downside is that if you are using the Apple HomeKit version, there can be delays between instructions you send and the lock opening. I found that the other two services are a bit more responsive and reliable. However, say what you want about Apple, but my experience in the home automation scene with them has been that I can disable my internet connection fully, and I can still use my phone to control my smart devices.
Nice.
My voice assistant does not work, but none of them really work. However, I will say there is a lot of active development on the Home Assistant project for that I'm following very closely.
Yep. With some of the new AI mumbo jumbo.
When I'm traveling, I frequently listen to the Home Assistant podcast so that I can follow the latest and greatest news.
Nice.
I need to follow that one because I didn't know there was one. So what I think would be cool, again, with the LadyTube, I tell it red alert, it automatically locks the doors and then, does the effect. That's what I would like to have happen. To include even locking down the chicken coop and the other buildings as well. That I think would be pretty cool. But that's
yes, absolutely.
So anyway, just a thought. And I like it. And so now I have to you just sent me down another hole down this rabbit hole that I've already been traveling.
You found another tunnel. You're branching off. It's a whole tree underground.
Yep.
Wendy, if you weren't here to keep us under control, this show would go into depths unknown.
I think the term is tailspin.
I think that's one of my funnest parts about doing the show is we could keep going on forever. And to be fair, once the show ends, once we hit stop record, we usually hang around and talk for another half hour, whatever afterwards. So our conversations don't end here, even when Matt's on. We usually have lots more conversation before and post. Just not all of it gets put out for everybody to hear, watch. Most definitely.
I have a dancing child behind me. It's actually quite amusing. I don't know if you saw that. Maybe heard a little bit.
I missed it.
That's fine. You can get it when you edit it. You'll see the light doing its thing.
Yes.
So, Wendy, I understand that you're staying cool by messing around with some fans in your laptop and making some tweaks to it. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So this laptop that I picked up, it's right behind me. Let me grab it. That you guys got to see on the last show with Phil, this massive laptop. So I want to keep it cool. It's got a massive cooler in the back so you can see back here where it gets some additional airflow through it. And I had set inside the BIOS for it to run at higher speeds, right? It's going to make the keyboard definitely warmer, whatever, but I want to keep the graphics card and the CPU as cool as possible. And I was noticing that even after saying that in the BIOS, my fans just weren't kicking on the way that I wanted to. And it sent me down a whole other rabbit hole, which got actually pretty frustrating. I did go ahead, like, as I talked about last week, rethermal pasted it, put new thermal pads on it. And so that wasn't necessarily the issue. And as I'm doing digging, it looks like Dell laptops, especially if you can't turn off the BIOS fan control in the BIOS, have a separate utility that you can install. So I installed that, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It'll be in the show notes, and it'll come up here across the screen. So I installed that and Dell BIOS fan control. And then I went in and edited that first program that I installed, and you can set different rates. Okay, in between here, I want the fans to run at this setting. In between here, I want them to run at this setting and whatnot. So I went ahead and I enabled it, and everything was running fine. And I rebooted the machine, and now my fans aren't working again. What in the heck is going on? So if you haven't bought a Dell laptop that has this issue and you're looking at one, just know that every time you restart it, you have to run the same command telling the BIOS control to turn off, so it'll use that other settings that you have in there. And I've thought about, hey, maybe setting up a script so that'll run every time I start up the system. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I haven't got that far where the 3D printer died, but I'll drop all of those notes inside. So if you have a Dell laptop that you're thinking about switching over to Linux, or you're looking at a used one, because I do have my eye on a couple other used ones, I would like to get the kids some updated laptops for schools, some 2-in-1s that are pretty thin on the lighter side. And there's quite a few Dell 2-in-1s that I'm finding on eBay for really, really good prices. And so my only thing kind of holding me back on some of those is, like, do you have to run this control every single time to turn it off? So I'll play with this one a little bit more and make sure that I can get a script set up so that it'll run that way, and then maybe dive into some of those. Now, as you know, yes, you're about to say something.
Yeah. So I was going to say, at least at a user level, it's really easy in Plasma to auto start something if you write a script, then like create like a desktop file. It's really easy to like start that up.
Right.
Although it does require a sudo, so I've not actually had to do.
Yes, it does have to be run as sudo. So that's where the scripting comes a little bit.
Right. So there's it's been a while, but there's a way to basically do that. I don't remember how to do it though. But I know there are some parts of like the whole system D thing you can create. You can wedge a thing in there as part of your startup script. That'll be a thing that it'll do automatically on startup.
Yeah, cool. I need to do some more digging into that. So if you've got some info, I would love it if you sent it my way, because at this point, that's the only hang up. The thing runs great. It edits well. Last week, I actually did half of DL on this machine. So while I would still love 2 more portable screens to go with it, so it wouldn't be this full setup, but it would be most of the setup in a portable form, that would be nice. I was still able to edit pretty efficiently with 1 screen on this. So otherwise, love it. It's just the fans that have been a pain. Now, NVIDIA threw me for another loop when I first installed this system. So I had been using OBS sometimes in order to pull some video files for DL, for the show, whatnot. And after putting in the NVIDIA graphics card, I could not, for the life of me, get OBS to launch. And the error that I was getting, it didn't make any sense to me. And so eventually I found a thread. Thank you, threads out there. And so that's part of the reason why I'm putting this out there too, that said that the culprit was actually part of an NVIDIA driver. So just remove this one little piece and then OBS launches no problem. Now I am using and I'll have to drop this in the links because I can't remember what it's called, but it's a form of the downloader. It's got a really, really nice little GUI. And so for different games that they've got actual trailers or whatnot, I can pull those off there. You watch DL where I've got little clips of movies or whatever going on in there. That's usually how I'll pull those with that downloader. And I absolutely love that. So I did find that because OBS wasn't working, but I'm glad that it's working. If you're running an AMD system, you don't have to worry about this. But for those of us currently on NVIDIA, and this is NVIDIA and Manjaro, I don't know if it's an issue with other systems, whatnot, but just removing this driver made life so much easier for me. So much easier.
Yeah, it's one of little things like that. And I just see it's one command too that solve that problem for you. Mm-hmm. Those are always just like the gold mines, or like the diamonds that you find, sifting, or the nuggets of gold sifting through the river of digital dystopia.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, that's pretty great.
Yeah, the one that is a heck of a lot bigger fix is getting DaVinci Resolve to run. And part of that is because the application for Linux is really meant to be used on systems that aren't getting updated frequently. And so you will get some libraries that are just way too new for what it's expecting. And so there'll be conflicts within what's in the DaVinci libraries file and what you've got running on your system. So you can go into the Resolve libraries and then make a hidden directory for them to go and then drop these older libraries into it, and then DaVinci typically launches just fine. Now, sometimes you get an error where it still won't boot, and there is an additional little library that needs to be installed, and so I've got all of those saved for you. So if you're interested in getting started with editing in DaVinci, this will help get you up and running. I actually found this tip and trick on a Fedora forum. That is where I found this. So thank you, Fedora, for sending this. It works on Manjaro, my Archbase. It'll work on Ubuntu, any of those, because it all saves things to the exact same spot. It's kind of nice the way that DaVinci has their file. So you set it up, you run it kind of like an app image. I know if you've got the program that integrates app images into the system, I can't remember what it's called. There'll be some conflict there. So that can be a bit of an issue in getting that installer to run. But otherwise, it runs, installs everything. And then now, if I go through this setup before I even start to launch DaVinci, I now get the welcome screen that tells me what the new updates are and all of that fun stuff. And yes, you have to do this every single time you update. So I'm on 19 right now. I downloaded 19.1 today, and when we're done, I'll go ahead and install that update, and then I'll run pretty much the same commands where I'm pulling these libraries, saving them into a hidden file, and then everything will be good to go. You only need to add this additional library on the very end if you're dealing with a fresh install. That doesn't need to be done every time, but hiding these libraries inside the Resolve libraries file does need to be done every single time. Kind of a pain, but as far as the things that I need to get my work done, I don't think I could use anything but DaVinci Resolve now. It takes our 3 cameras and makes it so easy for me to incorporate them into a timeline. And then on this show, I typically end up having like 8 different timelines that I'm able to bounce in between during the show. So all of us individually, I'll have this one where all 3 of us are together. And then I'll have one with me and Nate, me and Bill, and Nate and Bill, or Matt in those places. I put them all inside this very large file, and then that gets converted into a multicam, which then as I'm editing, all I have to do is be like, hey, switch the camera to this, which these different timelines that I have set up, and it makes it really smooth, very nice edit, plus all the additional fun things I get to do, like adding a donkey head on top of Ryan.
Which is necessary.
Which is necessary. Yes, absolutely.
Does it also mean something else?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Which in the episode, I guess it was the first episode that I helped to host after that, the one when Jill was gone and we were having a conversation. I used that other term when referring to why he ended up with the donkey over him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
See, I didn't get a donkey vibe. I got more of a Shrek vibe.
Oh, yes, that works too. That definitely works too. I would say that's also fitting.
Yeah, I agree.
Having sat next to Ryan in a car before.
Oh, really? I haven't heard this story before.
Going out to dinner at Scale last year, we all crammed into our rental car, and I'm not a very tall guy, but Michael and Ryan are, and I got sandwiched in between them in the middle seat.
So I met Michael. He is quite tall. I'm similar in height, but like I've always, I mean, you can only see what you can see on camera, and I figured you to be a bigger guy than Ryan. Ryan to me looks like a fire plug, but apparently he's not. He's taller. Who knew?
He's tall. He's just super broad. So when you're looking at him on camera, you'd think he was shorter than he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if he knows any like jujitsu.
I don't know if he does. I haven't met any of you in person, and I absolutely would love to. So one of these days, it's absolutely going to happen. I don't know when, but we'll make it happen. I know they've been trying to get me to go to Skill for the last several years, and timing-wise, it's such a crappy time as far as when we've got robotic stuff going on. So we'll see. Maybe one of these years I will make it. Now it's your turn to toss in your 2 cents on today's topics. Hit the discourse form. Drop us a line under this video or the contact form by visiting tuxdigital.com/contact. If you'd like to hang out with us on our preferred social media, and I'm so sorry I haven't posted anything in a while, I'll get on that. You can check out the links in the bottom of the show description. Find other great shows like Sudo Show. Hey, we got Bill on here. You can check him out on that show. Destination Linux, which is a very fun show, and Linux Saloon, where you can also find Nate, plus more, at tuxdigital.com. Show off your love for your favorite podcasts and shows by visiting the Tux Digital merch store. Grab yourself some awesome swag like the Gamer Centric. I paused my game to be here. I bet you Matt is playing right now. Or you can join Team Wendy with some sinister Wendy swag. I really think we need a Cubicle Nate shirt that says almost unhealthy obsession with a blank below it.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yes. I think it'd be awesome.
Unhealthy
obsession perfect for you.
Because I go through these little almost unhealthy obsessions with various things.
On a regular basis, I have the exact same, I don't want to say problem, but definitely the same tendencies too. I'm an addictive personality, but my addictions come to be like, oh, I've got to know more about this thing. And you dive down until, you're saturated with whatever it is.
Right, yeah.
My favorite piece...
Yes?
My favorite piece of Tux Digital swag is my Sudo Show apron that I use when I am outside grilling.
Awesome. Did the aprons come back into the new show, or was that something that was lost? Or the new store? Was that something that was lost?
I'm not sure. I've had this one for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And then I have a Sudo Show throw blanket that I put down on said futon behind me, but that is now covered in dog hair, so that needs to be washed. Because my dogs
As
think
for
it's
the
very
usual, when you have pets in the house, most definitely. As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with another awesome episode of Linux Out Loud. Until then, keep the banter friendly, the conversation anywhere near topic, and have fun doing it.
Somewhere in the orbit.
In the orbit, in the same universe, in the same galaxy cluster. Meh,
yeah.
You're good.
Different star system. It's all right. You can come back.
Right. All good.
BBQ.